If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, welcome to the Dance Racers podcast. My name is Alexa Lopez. We have Erin here with us.
Hi.
Again.
Yes, again.
This is part 2 of the ballet episodes. So if you just hopped on here without listening to the first episode, oh my goodness, what is that?
That's my cat.
Oh my god.
Playing. Sorry.
It's okay. If you haven't listened to the first episode, please stop listening right now and go to the first episode so it all makes sense. Because we're gonna discuss some problematic things about ballet.
Yeah, and now I think it's good because we've gone through the history. If you're wondering what's on the first podcast, we've kind of gone through the history and development of ballet, which is really important to understanding how some of these problems came to be.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So, let's address some racism.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so as we discussed in the last episode, we talked about how the corps of ballet were all the same.
Yeah, exactly. Same height, same costume. Yes.
And that brings a lot of problematic situations, and some of them is racism.
Yeah.
Because if you value uniformity, is that a word?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. If you value uniformity more than talent, then you're gonna exclude a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that being said, most of the dancers in ballets are Caucasians.
Yes.
And so if you have a really dark person or a darker skin color, it's gonna quote unquote pop out and people are gonna notice that they're not the same. So they kind of exclude certain darker color people from being in the companies.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk about Misty Copeland. So if you don't know who she is the first African-American female principal dancer of the American Ballet Theater. And she got this title in 2015. So it's super recent, 5 years ago.
Yeah, for that to be the first, that's...
And just so that people know, she has a really typical ballet body and features, I feel, because she's slimmer, she's really toned, she's really strong, but I feel compared to a lot of African American people, they're more curvier. And I don't know, I just feel that too, they kind of picked her because she's more in that body of the ballerina, the white ballerina.
Yeah, and I know we're getting into, there's so much information here, and we're going to talk about the other problematic things, which are body type, but which also relate to this. I agree. I remember watching a documentary about her, and I do not have a ballet body. For those of you who don't know me, I'm 5'2". So I'm too short. and I, am not flat chested. I have curves. And I remember watching the documentary about Misty Copeland, and people were still saying, like, she's not thin enough, or they were talking about how, like you said, she is very toned. She does have more like dense muscle than some of the other typically white ballerinas. But I was like, she's not thin enough because she's very slender. She's still a very slender woman. And so I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about her upbringings.
Okay.
Because compared to most ballerinas, prima ballerinas, she didn't start ballet until she was 13.
Yeah.
At the time that she, actually before she started her ballet training, her and her family struggled with poverty. They were living in a motel with her 5 other siblings. That's when she took her first ballet class. And she started point work right like 3 months after.
Wow.
Yeah, so she learned really fast. And she got her first like quote unquote professional performance a year after.
That is so quick compared to a lot of ballerinas, and especially on that like European, like Euro track that people start when they're like 3, and it's all that they do. And usually this progress does not come that fast. So that definitely speaks to her natural abilities.
She got a full scholarship to the American Ballet Theater's summer intensive in the year 2000. She joined the student company in September of that same year, and she became a member of the Corps of Ballet in 2001.
Wow.
So that was super, super quick. She later became the second African-American female soloist in 2007, and later promoted as the first African-American female principal dancer in 2015.
Wow. She just had like such a quick track there.
Yeah. Super quick. So there's a lot of criticism that people give her, and I feel like it's not I don't know. I feel like a lot of people criticize her on everything. Like whatever she does, whatever she doesn't do, like they give her criticism. And I feel a lot of it is because she is the first Black prima ballerina ever. So
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the criticism is not like valid, I feel, considering her like upbringings and how she was not like trained when she was like a little girl versus like other people, you know?
Well, I mean, maybe they wouldn't criticize her if she had been training since she was 3, or if she was white. Like, we don't, those are definitely some points. But also the thing is the fact that she started at the age of 13, worked for only 3 months, went on point, and then a year after was a professional dancer is like crazy. So it's saying that like having issues with her maybe because she didn't train as long. It's like, well, she was just as good and better than a lot of people after just the year of training, which is like I said, just speaks to her talent. But I definitely feel like some of this is a racism issue because like I said, in the documentary I'm referencing is, I believe it's a Netflix documentary, and it's called The Ballerina's Tale, that talks a lot about her struggles as she was training professionally, that people had issues with her being too muscular. And like we said, she's a thin girl. And so I think some of these are kind of unwarranted, or like I said, it was like nothing she could do could break through the idea of what people had about her for whatever reason.
So let's address some of the criticism that people give her.
Yeah.
So I've seen critics criticize Misty for her quote-unquote subpart Swan Lake performance and how quote-unquote lazy she portrays the character. There is a video on YouTube. Let me pull it up here so people can like go and look at it.
Oh yeah, good idea.
I also kept the the racist ballet one.
Oh my gosh.
Open just in case we needed to refer to that.
That'll be a whole nother episode of us sitting down with our popcorn and our wine and just watching ballets.
Okay, so on YouTube there's a video called About the Disharmony Between Misty Copeland and Classical Ballet. And basically they go over her performance in the Swan Lake and they show kind of each scene compared to another. It's like a Russian dancer dancing the same variations. Oh, I think they're different dancers actually.
Oh, okay. They're just comparing her to another dancer in each scene?
Yeah. Okay. There's Michaela the Prince, Gillian Murphy, there's Misty Copeland, of course, Julia Stepanova, Diana Vishneva, Eugenia, I don't know how to pronounce that. There's like a lot. Basically, they're comparing her with a whole bunch of Russian dancers. And there's a specific part where a lot of people are criticizing her for. And that was the 32 fouettes in the Odell variation. So if you don't know, for you all listening, in the Swan Lake, there's a part where the black swan is supposed to do 32 fouettes, correct?
Yes, and it's a very that is part of the ballet, and like every variation, every company does that same thing, and it's very traditional.
Mm-hmm. In this particular video, something happened. She messed up, and she ended up completing 12 fouette turns. And she ended up improvising the rest of the time where she was supposed to do the 32 fouettes. There's people criticizing her, and a user in Twitter called Henrietta tweeted, "This is why," and she added, "Mr. Copeland is the worst," in all caps, and why it's an embarrassment too, and then they added ABT Ballet to even have her on the roster, much less as a principal dancer. No wonder the rest of the world thinks American ballet is a joke.
I just think she so blew that out of proportion, because I think, first of all, Misty Copeland's a professional dancer. She can clearly do 32 fouette turns. She wouldn't have had the part if she couldn't have. Just as people and as dancers, we all make mistakes. Mm-hmm. People wouldn't have even noticed, except that this section it's always the same. It's not choreographed differently for different companies. They always do 32 fouettes. But people make mistakes. And Misty addressed it, didn't she?
Yeah, she took a screenshot of that critique and reposted it on Instagram. I believe it was Instagram, yeah. And she had this whole caption about it. In short words, she said that everyone makes mistakes and that she's a professional and she's always learning. Mm-hmm. and she doesn't really think that she's a swan queen. Like
Yeah.
she says that like she's not the best dancer ever, but she's always like that's her passion, and that she's always going to keep learning, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know. I feel like there's such a high standard on ballerinas, especially prima ballerinas, to be like this perfect person. Like you
Yes.
can't do any wrong because
It's flawless, and you're like not even really viewed as like a human. You're like a fairy prop, kind of.
Yeah. But I don't know. Me as a dancer, like I know I'm not close to being like the best, you know? And
Not the
but
goal.
yeah. Like I always love to like learn and try new things, and like you know, that's part of any profession, I feel. I don't think you're ever going to get to a point where like you're going to be perfect. Like you're
Well,
always going to continue to like get better and like learn and like
and if you're working towards like I feel like working towards perfection is the wrong like you just want to keep growing and changing, like you were saying, and like be the best version of yourself. And Misty also talks about a lot of wanting to like share dance and what she wants to do. And so I think she responded with this, and maybe there's a way we can, you know, link this up so people can find this if they want to read the whole response. But she responded with such grace. And yeah, I think also her being able to publicly be like, I'm not the best dancer, and she's a professional dancer. It's such a competitive industry that it's like she's very, very good. But I just think she responded with such grace, and I think you're right that you like I love the way she responded with like, I'm not perfect, because I feel like is the standard that's set for ballerinas, which is unrealistic.
Yeah. Also, she recognizes like that she has an important role in ballet today as the first Black prima ballerina. And I think she uses it as a way to encourage other Black dancers to like pursue ballet, because I don't think a lot of Black indigenous people of color pursue ballet like as the main like career. Like I feel like if they do decide to do dance as a career, they don't go to ballet because they know like the standards are super high and like we just can't, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like there are so many reasons why walking into that like industry can feel just intimidating anyway. But then if you're gonna walk into the room and everyone else is white, or you know, like you're coming from a different maybe socioeconomic background, and you're having to work really hard just to like there's so much traveling and auditions and so many expenses that come with ballet. Yeah, like I can't even imagine. So I think I like that she addressed that she has that role.
Yeah. I think she's being very outspoken about racist stuff in the ballet world, and also especially now with the Black Lives Matter movement, she has been really involved in that too. And I want to address something that she posted on Instagram. This is her addressing more racism in the ballet world. So this is in reference to the Bolshoi Ballet from Russia, and this is from a ballet that they did called La Bayadere.
When was this ballet? Just to like jump in really, was this a recent occurrence at the Bolshoi? We know.
Okay, so her post was December 7th, 2019, so like a couple months ago.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that the picture that it's here is from that time.
Okay.
The the video that I saw of that ballet, which we're gonna touch on, was from back 2012.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was like back then or if they just redid it. I'm not sure.
Still fairly recent.
Yeah. So the picture that she posted on Instagram is of two Bolshoi ballet dancers in blackface.
Oh my God.
That they were quote unquote characters in the ballet. And they are in full like really dark brown tights and dark brown, what is that, like a sleeve?
It looks like a full bodysuit. So we're describing this image where it looks like dark brown tights, and also like arm coverings and face coverings, and then they just have like a hole for their mouth and for their eyes, so you can see peeking through that they're not black because you can see their skin, and then they have costumes over it, so it must be some type of bodysuit.
It looks so creepy.
I just like have no words for the fact that this was done at, in 2012 at the earliest.
Yeah, and they have this like the head pieces. I think they're supposed to be like from somewhere like north of like northern Africa. I think that they're supposed to be because I went and looked at this ballet because I've never heard of this ballet before.
Yeah.
So we looked at it, and I believe it's from a scene called The Pharaoh's Daughter. So they're kind of like Egyptians, but they do have, in that particular video, they did have people like straight up blackface, portraying like African like tribes or something. Like it was so bad. Like the portrayal.
Some of them looked like African slaves as well. Had like some, what would you call it? Like wrist cuffs on. Like there was a whole thing.
Yeah. And it yeah, and I don't know, they were like wearing like paint on their faces or something. It was really bad. So Misty Copeland reposted it, and she said, and this is the reality of the ballet world. And that is it.
And she shared it on Instagram, is that right?
Yeah. I'll try to post all of these videos and pictures and stuff somewhere. I'll have to get back and like see where I can post this.
Yeah, and if you guys want to follow Misty Copeland, her Instagram is at Misty on Point, and Point has an E at the end. So
yeah, I think you can still find these posts there. They're just kind of down because they're back in December. So if you want to see that, the one, I don't know when this is posted. I kind of cut it off. But yeah, you can just go and see and find it yourself. You can also go on YouTube and see the ballet, so you can see like the reference and stuff. So yeah, I think. Oh, and the Bolshoi ballet, after they were called out by Mr. Copeland, responded, saying that they're not going to. Well, they are going to continue doing blackface.
What? I just can't believe that. Like, I mean, I can, but like
you're no, what is it called? Disappointed but not surprised.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no words. They're canceled.
Yeah, not watching the Bolshoi. I mean, boycotting the Bolshoi.
I mean, how do you like, after a black woman calls you out, how are you gonna go ahead and turn around and say, we don't care, we're still gonna...
Yeah, they have no shame. I mean, Yeah, I'd be interested to like doing some research and seeing where else this ballet is performed, where it originated. Like, is this a choreographed by Russian, like something Russia does, and hopefully nowhere else does?
Well, the ballet was originally choreographed by, was it hold on, it was Michael Petipa. Yeah.
Oh yes.
So he was Russian when he choreographed it.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last episode.
Yes.
So it is pretty old, the ballet, but it is from a white Russian man. So I feel like there is a lot of stereotype involved in it. So I don't know. We kind of talked about also the Nutcracker and the
Yeah, definitely the way that if you guys don't know the Nutcracker, they have scenes where they're in like the land of sweets, and they have these different like candies that are also like connected to a culture, and the candies are like dancers. So they have Arabian coffee and the Chinese tea, and I forgot what the Russian dancers are connected with, what food, but they
is it pastries?
maybe they're portraying other cultures.
Yeah.
And also this is from a European perspective and a ballet perspective, so they're using our movements and costumes that, you know, the Europeans were like, this is what a Chinese dancer would dance like, I guess, without a lot of real respect. And if you want to have that perspective, as we were talking about yesterday, Alexa, just on our own doing some research, that maybe that would be better to get a perspective if you want Chinese dancing of a Chinese ballet dancer, instead of just making your own opinion of what you think that would be like.
And a Chinese composer,
yeah.
And that goes also to the Arabian dance and like the other cultures. I feel like if we want to keep that moving forward, like I feel like we need to make changes that are culturally appropriate, you know?
Exactly. And I feel like that's what's so disturbing about the Bolshoi's response, is they straight up we're gonna keep doing blackface, which is not acceptable at all. And yeah, we do need to, like, the ballet world needs to do better, and I'm appalled that the Bolshoi's not on board with trying to do better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like the different ethnicities in Russia, but I'm just guessing. I don't think there's a lot of like Black people there. So I feel like also the lack of, not representation, but like the lack of people of color in Russia kind of amps up the ignorance a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, well, here in the States, like we have, I mean, how many ethnicities? Like, we're basically immigrants. We're all immigrants.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have people of all colors, all nationalities, all ethnicities, all races. So us, as especially our generation, are more aware of like these problems. And I feel like places where there's not a lot of diversity, they're more inherently ignorant.
Yeah.
And I mean, if someone calls you out and tells you like, hey, this is wrong, maybe you should like listen and learn from it and do better, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it wasn't just seeing this and seeing that, oh, this happened so recently, but it was that their reaction to what Missy said.
Oh my God. Okay. So we discussed body types.
Yeah, a little bit.
So this is kind of like a pretty well-known thing by like everyone, that dancers are seen with eating disorders.
Yeah.
And I think what I watched Black Swan like a long time ago.
Yeah, I watched that when I was like 9. My mom was mad at my dad.
I didn't know it was that intense either. I was just like, oh, it's ballet, so.
Yeah, that's what my dad was like, let's watch this ballet movie.
And I think it did, was it the main, I don't know her name. It was the main character.
I don't know the character's name, but she was played by Natalie Portman.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was gonna say her, like the actress herself.
Yeah, Natalie Portman.
Like she did have like portrayed like eating disorders, correct? If I remember.
There was I believe some of that, and then also kind of the unstable like mental state that it put her in. But I also remember besides just what was portrayed in the movie, that Natalie Portman is also a very slender woman who had to lose a ton of weight for this role. So she was like, she looked very like gaunt, very bony, very like unhealthy.
So yeah, eating disorders and dance, especially ballet, go like hand in hand. And this is because, again, ballet companies idolize uniformity over diversity, and that includes color, body weight, height, and even like body proportions.
Yeah.
So the ideal female ballet body, according to Dance Magazine, I'm quoting them right now. In reality, the ideal physique for a female classical dancer is slim with a long neck, a shortish to medium length torso, long legs with complementary long arms, and high insteps.
Okay, and that high insteps talking about the arch of the foot, correct?
Yeah, because the now we have like the aesthetically pleasing feet for point.
Yes.
So like for high arches, like your feet have to be like super curved.
Yes.
The approximate height is 167 centimeters, which is 5'4". So that's kind of like the height. If you're taller than 5'5", forget it. You're too tall. If you are shorter than 5'2", like me, you're too short. So there's a lot of implications, like things that you can't control that eliminates you already from becoming in a ballerina. So and also like how slim someone is and their proportions, like it leads to some ballerinas to like not eat, or like it just develops eating disorders.
Yeah.
So I found this statistics from the National Library of Medicine, and it says that 12% of dancers have eating disorders, and that accounts for 16.4% of ballet dancers.
Oh my gosh.
2% of the overall dancers and 4% of ballet dancers have anorexia. 4.4% of overall dancers and 2% for ballet dancers have bulimia, and 9.5% of overall dancers and 14.9% for ballet dancers have other eating disorders not otherwise specified.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This heavy stuff. Like compared to the other episode, this is much like
it's like the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
That's in there.
What'd you say we take a break?
Yes, sounds good.
And when we come back, we're going to discuss accessibility and privilege and what we can do to make a better ballet world moving forward.
Yes, and we're also going forward a little bit more on the height and weight and body proportions as well.
Okay. Sounds good. We're back.
Yes.
We left in a really kind of dark note. And right now we're going to talk about accessibility and privilege. So, this is kind of addressing how arts in general are really more accessible to white communities than Black and brown. Communities with a higher percentage of white people have inherently more opportunities to extracurricular activities in the schools, including arts. So that impacts dance as well. Communities with a higher percentage of white people have inherently more opportunities for extracurricular activities in schools, including arts, which affects dance. And that's, they have more opportunities to do that than low income communities of Black and brown people. And that's because of property tax. So if you don't know, property tax impacts schools funding directly. So most of the funding done for public schools are done through property tax. So that means the more property tax, meaning the more a house cost, for example, the better funding that school in that area will have. So that means if you have better funding, you have more money for more teachers, which has so if you have more teachers, you have less students in each class. And that means that they will have better attention and better education for the kids. Also, more school supplies, better facilities, school field trips to whatever, like more fun stuff.
Yeah.
Extracurricular activities, after school programs, and arts and science courses. So if you have less property taxes, and that's mainly a lot of Black and brown communities, then you have selective funding on low income schools. So you have to choose between paying a teacher, or if you have to fire the teacher because you can't pay them anymore. So that results in larger group classes. There's no funding on sports. There's lack of school supplies. There's lack of proper facilities, lack of resources for state exams, which is another whole thing. Lack of support for extracurricular activities, including arts and sciences.
And so that just makes it so, like, we talked about how Missy Copeland had, like, what she was struggling with when she started ballet. And so for a lot of these kids, you know, it's basically keeping them from being exposed to not just dance, but I know we're talking about dance, but dance in school's a place where they spend a lot of time, where they could get exposed to sports and dance. And a lot of these families might not be able to afford to bring them to like a private dance school. Can be expensive. So it's kind of keeping these communities down, and while the communities of privilege continue to flourish how they already were. So it's keeping ballet white.
Yeah.
In, the specific sense that we're talking about.
So what can we do to improve, like, ballet culture overall?
Yeah, such a good question. And, like, we definitely, like, don't have all the answers. And I feel like the best way to start improving is to have these discussions, to recognize the problematic systems in ballet and in our society that are keeping this going and supporting that, like, systematic racism. But we definitely need to, like, educate as dance teachers ourselves and all the other dance teachers out there, or even just people who, have children or nieces and nephews who dance, that about the Eurocentric history of ballet. And the racism in the system, and that we can do better, that you can decide what works and what doesn't work, and say that we shouldn't be performing ballets that people are doing blackface. That's not something that should happen. I definitely feel like we also need to like redesign the system of ballet, which would be and will be a whole thing. But I think that we need to do that so it's not so exclusive, so that we accept muscular bodies, and all bodies can be ballet bodies, that we include, which I've seen more of recently with the Black Lives Matter movement, that companies start to make skin tone, for all skin tone, shoes, point shoes, so that Black ballerinas aren't dyeing their pink satin point shoes because it doesn't match their skin. That we make skin tone leotards, tights, because all of that will make these dancers feel more welcome, like they belong in the community. I also have heard about some dancers, Black dancers that I know, being told to straighten their hair for performances. So I think also talking, making sure all students can wear their hair naturally in natural styles that work for them, and accepting.
And also protective styles too.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was just seeing so many stories about like girls in braids, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not Black. I don't know like all the styles, but like I know braids are one of the styles that are protective for the hair, and they're not allowed to have them.
Yeah, and that's that should be a personal choice that they're allowed to make. So I think changing all of those things, I mean, the system is a bigger thing that we need to keep discussing. But if you're a studio owner or a dance teacher, you have some of that influence on what you're allowing your students to wear. As far as if you're making everyone wear pink tights, or you're allowing them to wear skin tone tights, or their hair in natural and protective styles. So I think that that's something that we can do at the kind of the lower level of this system, is using your influence to stop using a system that doesn't work for all students, and start supporting all of your students equally, for sure. And then we also wanted to talk about how to make ballet accessible in these schools that aren't being supported, right? Because what can we do to change that for low-income communities? Especially, I feel like looking at schools is important if, like we said, they might not be able to afford going to a studio after school.
Yeah. So, for example, the high school I went to, at the time, they didn't have any dance classes at all. They only had PE dance, and that's the way that I kind of got more exposed in dance. I did ballet in a private studio, but I feel like that studio was so shady, and they weren't properly teaching us technique.
Okay.
They focused more on teaching us steps.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even then, like, my technique wasn't the best. And in school, I was part of a dance club.
Okay.
And it was run by students. So there was no teachers. It was just us making fun little hip hop choreographies,
Was this like after school?
Yeah.
Okay.
We practiced a lot. I think we practiced every day after school, actually.
Oh, nice. That's good.
And we had assemblies, the Mexican American Assembly in September because of Mexican Independence Day, and we had the African American Assembly in February for Black History Month, and we had an Asian American Assembly as well, and I can't remember if it was in May or April. I feel like it was in May.
Okay.
But basically, that's where we mostly would perform, just in assemblies. Oh, and we also performed during like Halloween time. It was like the homecoming assembly or something.
Kind of like festivals type
Yeah.
thing. Cool. Okay.
So it wasn't like super rigorous. It was just like a fun thing for us to do. But the point is that we didn't have like proper classes. We didn't have like technique classes. And they just started a dance program-ish there. They brought in a teacher and she's teaching like ballet and jazz, hip hop, I think.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's like something good. But like in a lot of schools down where I live, especially in the district, like the district is so bad right now. Like they're basically made like frauds or something. So they're defunding the schools so much and they're firing a lot of teachers because they can't afford the teachers. So it's just going downhill, and not a lot of schools have arts down here. So I feel like for me, when I didn't have that education in school, I really like felt it when I auditioned for state when I wanted to go to university.
Yeah.
Because I did so bad. I didn't know anything basically.
Yeah.
So I think it's all like a system thing. Like the people who have training, lots of training, that have opportunities to dance in school, they're the ones that are going to go to those to those auditions for college and get in those colleges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they're more prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like looking at the schools is another, like I said, good place to start, because all kids are going to schools, and it's not always about making professional dancers, but just exposing children to the arts and having opportunity. And I feel like one thing that I hope to do eventually is maybe start some sort of nonprofit and teach dance in schools.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a PE option, because I went to a middle school that we had ballroom dance as a PE option, something I never would have learned elsewhere, but I got to learn it because it was part of school. You need to take PE, you could do that or dance. And specifically I would like to work with, schools that are not as well funded, which is tricky. But so maybe being a nonprofit would be something that could help get into those communities and just expose kids to dance and give them that further opportunity or that interest and a little bit of training to then be able to look for somewhere that can further that for them.
Yeah. And I think because there's dance companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they have a lot of power and they claim to go into communities of low income to teach or whatever. But I feel like you kind of have to see how you're teaching, because if you're just if you're just going in there and do like a class per month, or like if you teach something just for fun or something, like that's not really helping the issue.
Yeah.
I feel, because if we go in there in those communities, we have to really educate and we have to consider like maybe they would want to like strive for a dance career, so how can we help them get into like higher education?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I feel like that's something where the consistency, so making sure that if it's a nonprofit or however, that it if that you can get in there and stay long term and not be another thing that disappears in that school for sure.
Okay. And for the ballet companies, I feel like addressing the problem from what we just talked about in schools and stuff, we also need to demand for change in those companies.
Yeah, totally.
I think we need to demand them to stop idolizing certain weight, height, proportions, skin color, in order for them to change and for them to have more inclusivity
Yes.
in their companies.
Yeah. That'll give a lot of, I feel like, hope to the students wanting to do that too, to be able to see someone like them who made it, other than just Misty Copeland, because right now it's just her.
So what can we do to stop like idolizing that weight, height, and proportions as a whole?
I mean, again, I feel like they're a whole different, like we need that change from the high companies as much as we need it just from teachers. So with the higher companies, like I think that's a bigger discussion, maybe petitions, maybe, I don't know. I don't have all of the answers for that. But you know, I know when I was growing up, even though my parents were very supportive of my dancing, I remember probably being 8 or so and having a conversation with myself knowing I was not going to be a professional ballerina. And that was not because of what my parents said, but that was because of the ballerinas that I saw, and my body did not look anything like theirs. And so I feel like a lot of that change, a lot of what's shown in the media and what's shown by those companies is going to affect what children are seeing. If their kids can get on YouTube now and look up ballet companies, and if all they see is skinny white women, that's what they're going to think makes it. And that's not entirely wrong right now, unfortunately. So I definitely think there's a lot of power in the media. And then also as, you know, dance instructors is like having those conversations with them, but also saying like, you can do it. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. And we can change things. And as dance instructors or parents of dancers, or, you know, dancers with other peers, saying that, you know, that like that we need to change that. We need to do better for those next generations. And so not teaching that, yes, educating on the history, but not continuing to teach those narratives that aren't helpful. So not idealizing in your own classroom the height and the weight and the body proportion.
All right. We just got cut off. So sorry about that. Do you want to continue, Erin?
Sure. Yeah. I think I was just I just kind of wrapping up the idea that just we want to, as I'm talking from a dance teacher perspective because I'm a dance teacher and I know you are as well, Alexa, of just supporting all of our students equally and not reinforcing that body, you know, those standards that aren't helpful and are, you know, very exclusive and just, you know, has nothing to do with just enjoying the art of ballet and wanting to have dance in your life and be a dancer.
Yeah. All right. This was such a packed 2-part episode. Conversation is not over. So if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, complaints, please let me know. Find me at the Dance Research Podcast everywhere on social media except for Twitter. At Research Dance on Twitter. You can go on my anchor.fm/the Dance Research Podcast to send me a voice memo so I can feature it here on my podcast. Erin, what's your Instagram again?
Oh, yeah. So I have two of them. So my primarily dance Instagram is at Erin Kracht, KRACHT _dancer. But I also post a lot of dance stuff on my regular account, which is public, which is just Erin at Erin.Kracht. And that's KRACHT.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Erin. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
That was a long one.
Yeah. Juicy stuff in there.
Yeah. We'll have to maybe make an update or something if something comes up with Bolshoi or any other company.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely keeping my ears out.
All right. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a good one.
Bye.